Hello, everybody. Welcome to Creator Toolbox, a show brought to you by the ServiceNow Developer Program, where we demo all the very much newest and latest and greatest ServiceNow features for every developer's toolbox. We are currently in the middle of our Utah release calendar. And so if you would like a full depiction of all the fun stuff that we have coming up, and also possibly some stuff that you've missed that you want to review, check out devlink.sn/Utah. Before we jump into all the latest and greatest for App Engine Management Center and the user experience analytics, let's do some introductions. First of all, I'm your host today, Lauren McManamon. I joined the ServiceNow community almost 6 years ago, which is crazy, and I work as one of our senior developer advocates on the team. I'm going to pass things off next door to our lovely guest presenter of the day, Brooks Hawkins.
Hey everyone, I'm Brooks Hawkins. I'm an inbound product manager here at ServiceNow, focused on app governance and citizen development success. My products include pipelines and deployments and App Engine Management Center, as well as our application intake for App Engine. I have been with ServiceNow for about 2 years. I'll hand it over to Earl.
Hi everyone, my name is Earl Duque. I am a developer advocate here at ServiceNow. I have been on the platform for about 6 years now, with ServiceNow for about 2 years. And before that, I was in higher education doing a lot of development and engineering and team leading. And I'll give it back to Lauren.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all the introductions. I am super, super jazzed today because we have a returning guest, which means we haven't scared them off just yet. Brooks did a phenomenal presentation last year on App Engine Management Center, and we have even more great stuff to look forward to with this Utah release. So without further ado, I'm going to kick things over to her to showcase all the latest and greatest.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. All right. So I am here in the new and improved App Engine Management Center. I am logged in as our trusty App Engine admin, Able Tutor.
Abel's
change.
back.
Of course, right? How can we leave Able out of any demo? So one change quickly for App Engine Management Center for Utah is it is no longer a workspace. So we have aligned the design with other admin experiences so that admins have this familiar experience within AEMC. So you'll no longer find it under this workspace tab. You'll go to all, App Engine, App Administration, App Engine Management Center. So looking at App Engine Management Center, while we're going to focus today on user experience analytics, I want to go over some of the features that we do have in this new App Engine Management Center. Most of it is the same as you will see in San Diego and Tokyo. So first, we have our 3 different request types, but we have also brought some information that typically gets hidden in App Engine Management Center. So if a collaboration request gets auto-approved, it gets closed out before you even have a chance to know that it was submitted, besides the email you get. So we're bringing that to the front so you can see if you've had collaboration requests that were auto approved in the last 72 hours. Same with deployment requests. If for some reason the flow with the deployments fails, those are going to close probably before you are able to see them in AEMC. And while you'll get an email, as many admins do, they have tons of emails from ServiceNow, and sometimes it gets buried. So we're bringing that to the forefront so you can address any issues that might come up. While the deployment request failing is pretty rare, definitely don't want that to get buried.
No, so now you're removing excuses of like, oh no, I didn't see it. Now there's
exactly.
There's no way you didn't see it.
Right. Yeah. When the developer calls you and is like, hey, how's my deployment going? You're like, oh, I don't even see your request. No idea what you're talking about. You'll actually be able to see that it failed for some reason. And then we have our new pipelines. So one cool thing about what we did in Utah is if you're familiar with the previous versions of pipelines, you would click on one of the environments and it would take you to a whole nother page. Right. The new thing is you can do this all on the overview page and everything is within context. So you click on show requests and the requests are going to pop down directly under the environment that you just clicked on.
It's so clean. It's so
yeah.
clean looking.
Yeah, it's a lot cooler than the last one where we had multiple pipelines on the top half of the screen and then the whole list that changed on the bottom. You can stay in context the whole time. If you have multiple pipelines, you can either change to the different pipelines directly on the overview page, or you can actually go to the pipeline page and see them all in a list like this. But again, everything stays in context. So when you're looking at requests, the other pipelines would move down and your list of requests will show up.
Okay, so if people are used to seeing a stacked pipeline like in the previous version, then they have a new page for the pipelines.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a pipelines page in the San Diego and Tokyo versions. But it would, if I had, for example, if these were my two pipelines in Tokyo and I clicked on test, I would actually have to scroll down to under the new pipeline to see that list of requests. So it just helps you stay in context to which environment you're looking at, which pipeline you're looking at.
That's great.
And then lastly, we are bringing up some of our adoption metrics directly to the overview page. So we have our custom apps in production, number of custom apps in development, and number of developers. And then we even break that down by departments. These numbers are still going to exist on the custom apps and developer tabs, but they're going to be also on the forefront. And then coming in May, we're going to be adding par charts for all of this. So you'll be able to see a trend over 90 days to see, how your number of apps, number of developers is increasing, decreasing, and how you're adopting App Engine.
That's the best news. I mean, back when I was on this SC team, that was the biggest question like managers had of like, oh, we're paying for App Engine. We don't really even know its impact. So even just that abbreviated graphic of what's to come answers like most of the questions that we would get asked.
Exactly,
so
right.
nice.
Like if you need to report out to leadership, you can grab these numbers really quick straight from AEMC. Requests is very similar to the list in the workspace. You're just going to see your 3 different request types, and we're using out-of-the-box list components so you can filter just as you expect to do. Went over the pipelines tab, so then I'm going to jump to custom apps tab. So this was called applications in the previous 2 versions, but it's the same thing, just showing you your custom apps. The one big difference here is in the previous versions, you would have had a left rail here that said apps in production, apps in development, apps in an active deployment. But what was happening is take your AC Bake Corporation Emergency Alerts app, you would have at least 2 of these, maybe 3 if it was also in an active deployment. So we have consolidated it. Each scope will have an individual record. And if that scope has been published to production, you will see the published version in the list. So these 3 apps have never been to production. These 2 have been to production at least once. And I'm going to come back to the actual custom apps records after I go over developers, because that's where we're going to get into user experience analytics.
Yay, developers.
Yay.
Yes. So if you're expanding any sort of development outside of your core ServiceNow team, or you have a huge development team and you want to know who's active, what departments are involved, how many developers you have, we have the developers tab. You can open any of these users and it's going to show you what apps that they have collaboration permissions on. And since it's a little slow this morning, there we go.
I was about to say, like, Adela hasn't done much.
Yeah, she's actually very active, right? She's built 4 apps. She's an editor on another. And then we're also like, if there's an active deployment, we're going to put that request number directly here. So you don't have to go looking in a different place to figure out, which of these apps are in an active deployment. And then similar to
Nice.
previous versions, we're going to have all the different request types that Adela or any of your developers has submitted, so that you can see those in context of what has Adela submitted.
Can you give us a
All right.
little definition of what a collaboration request means? So, what does that actually
Yeah,
mean on the
absolutely.
system?
Yeah, so let's say in Adela's case, right, I know that Adela was the the owner of the AC Bait Corporation Emergency Alerts app. And
Mhm.
let's say that she needed some help building that app, or she just wanted to, you know, co-develop with somebody else. In
Yeah.
App Engine Studio or Dev Studio, you can add collaborators
Mhm.
and give them specific permissions within that app. So, say Adela needs help with the UI piece. The admin can define a UI descriptor that gives users that have the UI descriptor only access to things like UIB, workspace builder, catalog builder, things that are UI focused. And then Adela would be able to request to add someone as a collaborator to her app. And then that person would only, let's say she used the UI, she requested to have them added as a UI developer. That person would be able to develop on this app, but they would only be able to edit or create anything in that UI space that they had permissions for.
So it's like a
And the admins,
better
yeah,
reportable version of the delegated development then. So if people have used
yeah,
delegated
exactly.
development in the past, it's a little bit reactive, right? Like you give someone access and they go, okay, well, what do I actually need? This, and also if this were to change probably over time too, it would reflect that. So say, hey, at first she only worked on X, Y, and Z, but then, it changed to something else. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the admin will be able to see um, what exactly the descriptor is. And collaboration is built on delegated development. So that's the technology that's used. And it just gives someone specific permissions within an app. Um, but the admin can create any number of descriptors that they want so that they can have a little bit more custom permissions. And so this is an example of a collaboration request where Adela asked to add Chad as an editor to one of her apps.
Very cool.
I think this is kind of good conversation because I think as we're going through AEMC, what we probably could have done earlier in the show but didn't really do it justice was talk about like overview. Why is AEMC such an important thing, especially for us developers and admins that are used to old pipeline methods of managing your cycle of applications going from development to whatever pipeline it is. A lot of people have the test environment and then production. But AEMC, the best way for me to understand why it's so helpful is because this is like a low code version of DevOps. Instead of making everything so manual and tracking and having to have your own systems, ServiceNow is providing AEMC so that your DevOps part of everything can be low code. Now you can actually track progress of everything from different pipelines, multiple pipelines. I came from higher ed where my last workplace had 20 plus completely separate governed organizations that all work through different methods, and the pipelines were all over the place. And so it was nice to be able to say this group goes through these pipelines, this group goes through these pipelines, but tracking that was a nightmare. And so AEMC, that takes away a lot of that headache for admins, especially, and for DevOps. So that idea of guaranteeing traceability, guaranteeing transparency, being able to report to people exactly what's happening at a glance, that's all helpful through AEMC. That's all very good to have, just to be able to highlight all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things when you drill down into AEMC, you could see more, even more stuff, granular things like your ATF tests, how successful they were, all which ones didn't go through, people conversing about collaboration, people asking for the approval processes for these things to get deployed. All those things are within each one. And taking a step back from just the updates in Utah, like these are all things that are just making a thing that would make our lives easier, even easier. And that's one of the cool things I like about AEMC. I'm mad with the acronym AEMC. AEMC. But yeah, so just a little bit of there's a lot of cool stuff in here that would make lives so much easier if we just like take the time to, you know, get it up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. And App Engine Management Center, it runs on your production instance, and then we bring all the data to you. So when you're doing deployments, we're leveraging the app repo, and through our pipelines and approvals that we give to the admin, we're moving it through the pipeline without any of the admins having to actually log into another instance. So looking at our pipelines for this Knowledge 23 planner, I never had to log into test to actually install Knowledge 23 on the test instance. I just approved it to go from development to test, and then we automatically ran ATF and instance scan, and then generated another approval. So now as the admin, I could go review it again and decide if I want to approve it to go from test to production.
Awesome.
Yeah, so, and same with like custom apps and developers, right? Like I'm on my production instance, but I am looking at data that is from development and production. So we're bringing that data to you so you don't have to go to all these different instances to get a full picture of what's happening.
Or grant those instances access, or grant people access to those instances that probably wouldn't be best waltzing around in there all too much, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the other thing. If you wanted to have like an App Engine admin that is not necessarily a system admin, we have a completely separate role for App Engine admins, and that allows them to manage all of this stuff within AEMC without having the system admin role.
You better.
All right, so jumping into custom apps. So I'm going to actually open up my AC Bake Corporation Emergency Alert app. And I'm going to give an overview about this before we jump into user experience analytics. We actually released this app usage stuff at the end of Tokyo cycle in November. So at the top here, you're going to get a current month summary of distinct users, how many new records were added, and how many records were updated. So you can see there were quite a few. There's been quite a few activity this month already. For a particular app, you can also see the deployment history and any collaborators on the app. In this case, Adela is the only developer on this app, but had she added anybody else, you would see that list of users here and what descriptor they have. So then going back to app usage. So in Tokyo, there is a new platform feature, I believe it's called User Experience Analytics. You might also hear it called AppSy, but User Experience Analytics is the official name, and that is what you would search for on your instance. And this collects data on various experiences. In the Tokyo timeframe, we only had workspaces that were supported. Now we have mobile experiences, workspaces, portals, and that list is growing quickly on what can be tracked in user experience analytics. So if I open this link, and the way we do it, I guess one thing I skipped here is in App Engine Management Center is we're going to look at the app, figure out which experiences exist in that app and are supported by user experience analytics. And we're going to figure out where the dashboard is for that experience. And so if there had been multiple workspaces or a portal that we had hooked up for this app, you would see a list of all of those experiences here with their own dashboard.
Which experiences currently show in that list? Is it all of them, or is it like with like a mobile app showcase there, or not yet?
Mobile apps are supported. In AEMC, we started supporting them in Utah.
Woo.
So the two things about portals and mobile apps is typically, so first with mobile apps, you decide which of the ServiceNow apps you're going to add your app to. So
Mm,
sometimes that usage is within like the Now mobile app.
true.
But we will, if you have added a mobile app to the Now mobile app, we will give you the link to that dashboard. And then same with portals. You can see tons of detail in user experience analytics on portals, but usually portals, right, contain a lot of stuff like catalog items, and all sorts of, maybe your knowledge articles, other things that you might consider a user experience, but they're contained within that portal. So that's where that usage will be shown.
It looks like and sounds like it's trying to reach parity with App Engine Studio. Basically, I see that button up there that says open in App Engine Studio. So I assume any experience that is being created in AES is probably at going to appear in this dashboard, or going to eventually, is what I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, and since user experience analytics is a platform feature, it's even going beyond what is just shown in AES. There's a ton of work across ServiceNow to hook up different tools to be able to be tracked in user experience analytics. So customers will be able to turn that on, and it's a platform feature. So you don't necessarily have to go through App Engine Management Center to get to these dashboards. You can just go to user experience analytics. The difference with App Engine Management Center is we're figuring out which dashboards go with which apps and putting it in the context of that app.
It's connecting everything.
Exactly. So this is my user experience analytics dashboard for
Graphs. I love
yeah,
seeing graphs.
right. For my AC Bake Corp emergency alerts app, and you can see, I am in a different experience, a different tab now, and you can see I could actually switch to any sort of different user experience analytics here, but there's tons of information in user experience analytics, starting with the overview page, which is going to tell you about active users, sessions, page views, average session duration. And then you can actually break all this down by daily, weekly, monthly. Users, you can look at active versus new. So tons of information just on the overview page.
Brooks, is this what we're looking at right now? Is this fairly out of box, or is this pre-configured for this demo?
This is 100% out of the box.
Nice.
So all I had to do to prepare for this demo was deploy an app to production and then log in as some users and start using the app.
Nice.
I didn't have to do anything with user experience analytics. The dashboard was automatically generated, automatically started tracking this information.
This is like, selfishly, this is one of my favorite features like of the Utah release, because so many times when I was a developer, like you'd have someone that would have like a out of nowhere, they'd have like a huge interest in workspaces, like add all this stuff to the backlog and all this stuff. But this gives you such good data around like whether or not certain improvements or backlog priorities make sense for what your users are using, right? Like mobile might sound really cool, but if no one's using the mobile app, you want to use that time in a better way. So this gives everyone the best defense of like where things are being created, where people are returning to, because even shows like user retention. Like I said, selfishly, this is like one of my favorite improvements of Utah. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg here with all the cool features within user experience analytics. There's all this information on sessions. You can look into, how are first sessions going versus returning users and loyal users. You can analyze, where are people abandoning things quickly, short sessions versus long sessions. There's so much information. You can pop out, session details,
So cool.
see exactly how someone is using the experience. Within the user information, you can see, it's all anonymized, like we use hash user IDs, but you can see like, how long are the first sessions? When was the last session? What type of device are they using? So again, like, okay, this seems like everyone's using Mac and Chrome, right? Maybe it doesn't make as much sense to invest in a mobile experience if everyone is using
Yeah.
a Mac.
Also too, for like language, like globalization, like if everyone's doing it in America versus like if everyone's doing it in Japan, that would be like bring up a huge topic of like, are we globalizing our applications appropriately and things like that.
Right, exactly. And in the analytics section, you can actually see geographic. Now, all my users are in the same location, but if that was not the case for your app, you would actually be
Whoa.
able to see, how many sessions are you having in each country, and then drill into that.
That's so cool. That's so
Whoa,
stinking cool.
a whole map.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's in Washington. And then you can UI analysis. So this is really cool if you want to understand how are users actually using the app. So it's going to take the actual user flows here, and it's going to give you the path
Whoa,
that
cool.
everyone is using. So you can actually figure out, is there a way to optimize this? Like, okay, everybody seems to be going to this status report record. Is there something that we can do to like make this more prominent in the app? And you can even break it down by new or returning users. Like, do returning users have once they're familiar with the app, is it way more streamlined of what they're using?
This is user experience centric design. Yay.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then even more with the insights, you can see like the quit rate, page popularity. So, makes sense. Everybody goes to the home page and then they go to some sort of list and then they select some sort of record. And again, it seems like the record for status reports is more popular actually than the emergency alert record. You can see engagement, like how much time they're spending on each page. The times here are low, but you would probably expect that from an emergency alert app. Hopefully people
Yeah.
don't need to spend hours sending emergency alerts.
And that's like an average of the durations of users on there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then we have pages, so you can drill into each page, views, session, average duration. And then if you can actually on some of these pages see the page flow. So like it gives you more information on like load time, and how are people getting to this page. So most people are coming from lists. So and like where are they going from the homepage? Seems like everybody's going from, a lot of people are going list to list, list home list. That seems to be a pretty normal navigation.
Does this is there plans to track, or is there ways to track how people get in from external or get out from here to external?
That is a good question. I am not sure. That would be something I have to follow up with the platform team on user experience analytics.
And all the
But that,
UX designers are just like standing up in their chairs right now, seeing this stuff.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. Here's another thing. You can change the route here. But you can see the navigation path, and what percentage of people are going where and in like what order. There's yeah, tons of stuff in analytics. So it's the overview page. It said you can do geographic, you can look at technical information, so operating system, devices, browser.
Device type one is a big one, because I remember that was always such a question of like, do we or do we not invest a lot of time in going mobile for our custom apps? And for
Yeah.
some, like if it was like an emergency reporting app, I think mobile would be perfect. However, if it's not, and everyone's just using a desktop anyway, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's nice to
exactly.
prove.
Yeah, and even, it's one of those things like you could give, the MVP of your mobile app if you think it will be valuable and see if people are using it. And then, people aren't, then maybe it's okay, let's just focus on making our web applications really useful.
Yeah. Like adding, like also going back to that pathing thing, you can see like, oh, if we just added in like a UI action here, it could cut the line on the path that 80% of our users are taking anyway, or things like
Yep,
that.
exactly. And then you have events. So, you can see exactly, so viewing data visualization. So there's some data visualizations on the homepage. So you would expect that pretty much everybody is going to view the data visualizations, especially they're spending a lot of time on the homepage compared to the other pages. But you can actually see, you know, tons of details on how what's happening with these events, how many occurrences there are, what is like the most common thing that users are doing on your app. And then there's two cool things that you can configure yourself is if you want to understand how people are using your app, or you have intended your users to use your app a specific way, is you can create your own funnels. So if I wanted to know how many people are completing the request in employee status versus sending an emergency alert, I've created two funnels. For my employee status, visited the homepage, then somehow got to a status report record, and then triggered an event. Versus my send emergency alert, which is a very similar funnel, except that I am on the emergency alert. I'm looking at the emergency alert record. No one's triggering events on this emergency alert. So is there an issue with my app, or have there just not been any emergency alerts that need to go out? You can see, are people using your app the way you intended them to?
And it times it. So it not only shows like, oh, they're completing this path, but maybe it's taking them shorter than you thought it would, or longer. Hopefully the former than
Yeah. Yeah, right. And you can create funnels directly in your user experience analytics. Of course, live demo instance is always the slowest at this time.
It's okay. I think one thing I also like to see, which is not the most popular ServiceNow opinion, is that little icon that indicates that you can download these results. Because no matter how much everyone on this call loves ServiceNow, some people just don't frequent it that much. So the option of being able to download that data so that it could be more shareable, always like a really nice touch that I like to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And like for the overview page, right? Like if you needed to give a report to your leadership, or to someone in the business or something like that, you can download it and share it with them without having to, get them onto the ServiceNow platform. To maybe this will be too much information. You just need to give them the high level. This is how your app's being used. So yeah, you can download data pretty much anywhere. The other thing that you can create is your own cohort. So this will be like groups of people and how they are actually using certain events. So my first one was for emergency alert action. I want to know uh, how many people are coming in and creating multiple emergency alerts. Like every time they come in, that's all they're doing is creating emergency alerts and not actually, communicating with asking their employees their status. They're just looking at emergency alerts. And so then as this data progresses over several days and weeks, I'll be able to see like what is the percentage of people that actually are, you know, creating emergency alerts every time they come into my app. And you can create any sort of cohort of people to see like what percentage of users are doing things multiple times every time they return to the app.
I like that. That's very common in web analytics too, to see how much people bounce and come back. Because you might get good reception on the first try, but then they never come back. And this would help inform you if that kind of information helps inform you if they had a good experience at the first go, and if that translates into them coming back or not.
Yeah, exactly. And you can look at percentage, absolute, break it down daily, weekly, monthly, and you can download it. So, I mean, user experience analytics, it's awesome. And as you're increasing the amount of custom app development on your platform, it's super helpful in deciding like, okay, should I retire an app? Where should I spend my time enhancing an app? Like, can I combine apps with something else? Like maybe you have two apps that have similar use cases and both have a ton of usage. Like it really helps you understand how are your apps being used, are they being used, and the importance of them.
It's so nice to see all this, especially because I've been developing custom apps since I think Istanbul. I think that was or maybe Helsinki. And App Engine at the time had this stigma of like being the Wild West, like of ServiceNow, because at the time there was no scopes, there was no delegation, there was no IDE, and there was definitely no reporting like this. And so to see the platform grow in this way to match the needs of these teams that are utilizing it so much, like it brings like so much joy to me, because this was like the last frontier of that, of like really in-depth reporting on the amount of effort people are putting into these apps. Like, is the effort worth it? And now, thanks to you and your team, you can prove all of that. That's a huge win.
Yeah, and also like this is the coolest platform feature. And I'll say like, even if you wanted to know how are people using, App Engine Studio, you can do that. You have you'll be able to see
I didn't know
a dashboard for AES, or maybe you did decide the system admins won't be App Engine admins. You're going to have a whole team that just does App Engine admins, and you want to understand how they're using AEMC. You can do that. So this is one of the coolest platform features that has been released recently.
And that's a good segue into another question that I was reserving to around this time. You were saying that this is great for if you have a lot of custom apps and stuff like that. But now you're pointing out that you can do this same thing for App Engine Studio. Does this work for other apps that come in that are not custom apps? We had a question from Robert asking for like Employee Center. Can you do those kind of analytics for other products and stuff like that?
Yeah, so this is the user experience analytics like homepage dashboard. So again, it's a platform feature. It's just something that we're leveraging in App Engine Management Center and just trying to give you a little bit more context for the custom apps. But you can go directly to user experience analytics and see the different types of apps that you have here, different experiences. So you're going to see out of the box stuff, you're going to see Employee Center.
Nice.
All sorts of portals, your mobile apps.
You can even go
I
full circle and look at App Engine Management Center's dashboard.
Right, exactly. The only thing is, I know for portals, there is some configuration you have to do to enable it to bring in this information, but that is documented in the product docs on like, I think there's one or two things you have to turn on so that it starts to pull in the information you would need for user experience analytics.
I'm sure it's still better than the previous dashboard for service portals, where half of the reports don't work unless you reconfigure them yourselves.
Yeah, I bet so.
Man, so this seems to have covered, especially the difference between this version and even November Tokyo is massive. I can't imagine like what might be coming next. Is there any hints that you are comfortable giving us
Yeah,
under the guise of safe
absolutely.
harbor?
Yes, safe harbor. We're hoping to get some of this out in Vancouver, but definitely Washington's going to be a big release because we have some big things coming for App Engine Management Center. One thing we are looking to do is bring in subscription management data for App Engine. So one, bring it into pipeline so you can see what roles are in your app and which ones might have a subscription uh, implication if you deploy it to production, what custom tables are in your apps before you publish it to production, and then a whole dashboard on your App Engine subscriptions. So understanding how many fulfillers you have, stakeholders, custom apps, requesters, all that information, and then being able to drill down into those custom apps and see in context of that app how many subscribed users do you have on this custom app? How many fulfillers do you have on a specific custom app, which will help you manage those licenses for App Engine. And then we're working on a big initiative with our pipelines, where we are going to make them very configurable. So we're going to build the pipelines using PAD, which will break down the flows into smaller pieces and allow customers to move those pieces around. And then what the way pipelines work today is each pipeline has to have a unique development instance. But what we're looking at doing is allowing you to associate an app with a pipeline, regardless of the dev instance. So if you want to have a pipeline that's for citizen developers or a pipeline that's for marketing, you can do that, but still have them all build on the same development instance. And it's going to allow the pad piece is going to allow you to make the pipelines a lot more configurable. So think integrations with change management, dynamic approvers, scheduled deployments, all of these things that are just going to make your pipelines a lot easier to use, but also way more customizable and configurable, so that they take in the entire existing process that each customer has.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are some bigger changes.
Yeah, but that's, as I said, we're hoping to get some of it out in Vancouver, but it is a huge change that we are working on and some pretty big initiatives. So I think Washington is more likely the target for these big changes, but it's really going to help customers deploy apps faster with, you know, making sure they're following all of their existing processes.
Yeah.
And then subscription pieces, you know,
That
what
union with
everybody's been asking for.
Oh yeah, that union with subscription management would be massive because I know that again that was one of the always the biggest questions of like I had this great idea, I have no concept of how that'll impact our licensing, so I'm not going to build it. So now that'll be like just in plain text on their screen based off of all the development requests they have. Oh man, too cool.
Yeah. And then imagine combining that with user experience analytics and seeing like, oh, someone wants to deploy this new app, but I'm low on licenses. Do I want to buy more? Or is there an app that maybe should be retired or doesn't need as many licenses and I can redistribute giving customers more control over how they're using their App Engine licenses.
Oh, it's a great day to be in
Yeah.
App Engine, huh?
Yeah, it's exciting stuff coming.
Well, thank you. So I can't thank you enough for presenting this. This really jazzed me up. A great Tuesday morning spent covering all this really exciting stuff. I wanted to first of all give you the opportunity to plug any type of contact information you have. If people have follow-up questions or people that might have missed this recording would like to reach out, where can they find you?
Yeah, my name is Brooks Hawkins, Brooks, no E in there. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at brooks.hawkins@servicenow.com.
Awesome. And Earl, am I missing anything from my closing notes? This is my first time hosting, so I apologize for anything I might have missed.
If it's not on the notes, then I think you got everything.
Awesome. Well, I am so grateful for all the attendees here today or people watching after this has been recorded. Again, a reminder to check out that Utah content calendar at devlink.sn/Utah for everything coming up and everything you might have missed. And with that all being said, thank y'all for joining us here today, and we'll catch you on the next live stream. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.